On the night of December 23rd, at a Ross Dress for Less store in Orange County, the festive shopping atmosphere before Christmas suddenly turned tense. In one corner of the store, a determined woman, seemingly involved in a campaign for justice, caught everyone's attention. With an argument no one could have anticipated, she demanded a discount because "my boyfriend works here." She left the store employees flustered, other customers confused, and ultimately forced the police to get involved. That night, Ross was not just a place for clothes, but a dramatic battleground for an unbelievable, yet real, story. The store, which was peacefully quiet like a still life painting, was suddenly disrupted when the Queen of Discounts entered, bringing with her the atmosphere of an uncompromising battle. She did not enter the store like an ordinary shopper, but as a mighty warrior on a quest to conquer a kingdom. With a steely expression, as though everything around her did not deserve her gaze, she walked with determined steps, like a general ready to fight for a noble cause, a discount. When she opened her mouth, all attention immediately focused on her, not because of the weight of her words, but because of the way she spoke, which left everyone stunned. "I deserve a discount," she declared boldly, without hesitation, needing no justification. And her reason? Not because she had a coupon, nor because she was a loyal customer of the store. The only reason was simply, she wanted it. It was a reason everyone could feel, but only the Queen of Discounts had the courage to state it so seriously. Immediately, the atmosphere in the store changed. Bewildered and confused looks from all sides started to focus on her, as if they were witnessing something incredibly strange. Some might have thought this was an official meeting of discount experts, while others felt as though they were in the midst of a life-or-death battle, where their existence depended on whether or not they received a discount. No one knew how to react to such a bold declaration, and certainly no one was prepared for the next clash that was about to unfold. From that moment on, the store was no longer a peaceful place. It became a stage where the Queen of Discounts was ready to fight for her rights, and everyone present was an unwilling audience in this bizarre play. When the Queen of Discounts made her bold statement, the store employee, although trained to handle routine questions like, "Do you have sales?" or "Do you offer student discounts?" was now thrust into a battle she didn't even know how to begin. The employee, with a forced smile, tried to stay calm, like a warrior without weapons facing a powerful enemy, the Queen of Discounts. She gently tried to convince the Queen that the store's policy only applied discounts to those with coupons or loyalty cards, an argument that seemed very reasonable and logical, but to the Queen it was just an insurmountable wall in her path. The store employee couldn't help but realize that no matter how many legitimate reasons she gave, the determination of the Queen of Discounts was beyond any conventional logic. The entire store seemed to fall silent, watching the increasingly tense dialogue between the tube sides. The store employee was used to dealing with questions that satisfied customers' curiosity, but this time, the Queen's question wasn't a simple request for information, but a powerful proclamation. And no matter how patient the employee was, she couldn't stop the feeling that she was trying to fight a storm, with every explanation just making it fiercer. She could only smile, but it was a smile of pure helplessness. Looking at the Queen of Discounts with an icy, razor-sharp gaze, the store employee began to feel like a weak warrior standing before an undefeatable opponent. Not only was she ignoring all policies, but it seemed as if she saw them as insignificant details unworthy of attention. "What policy? I don't care. I just want what I want." The Queen's words rang out like a declaration of power, rendering any arguments or reasoning meaningless. The store employee stood there, her hands tied, her eyes filled with disappointment. She had grown weary of fruitless negotiations, and now, before the unyielding Queen of Discounts, every explanation seemed like water off a duck's back. The feeling of helplessness overwhelmed her, as if she had been swept into a play she had no part in. How could she possibly fight against such a steely will? She could only raise her hands in surrender, accepting defeat in a painful way, as if she were the loser in a game with no rules. This situation, though tense and dramatic, brought about an unexpected sense of humor. An unequal battle between an employee armed with rules and a queen who would not accept refusal, ended with an inevitable surrender. The woman, with an unyielding spirit, decided that today would be a historic day, not because she had bought enough stuff, but because she was participating in a great protest, defending the discount rights of humanity. She stood firm like a heroic warrior, her eyes glowing with the strong belief that a fair discount is a basic right of all citizens, whether they have a coupon or not. In her eyes, this battle wasn't about a piece of clothing or a price, but about a sacred ideal. Discounts are everyone's right, and if she didn't get a discount today, there would be no tomorrow for people like her. Meanwhile, the store employee, now starting to sweat profusely, didn't know what to do next. She tried her best to maintain her calm, but her explanations about the store's discount policies were like whispers in the wind to this woman. She was completely unshaken, like a brave warrior on the battlefield, clutching her favorite item with unwavering resolve. The words, "Sorry, we can't offer a discount without a coupon," seemed to shatter into meaningless sounds in her ears, unable to sway the unbreakable faith of a protector of discount rights. This dramatic and humorous scene made it seem like time had stopped in the store, with all eyes on the woman. She was the star of this play, needing no spotlight or props, only faith and determination. Meanwhile, the store employee, with all her logic and policies, could only sigh, as though she were participating in a battle with no chance of victory. Eventually, the store employee, unable to withstand the willpower of the Queen of Discounts, decided to call the police, not to arrest her, but perhaps to seek psychological support after this tense exchange. The police arrived, not as enforcers of the law, but seemingly as professional mediators, ready to solve the issue of discounts. Who could resist a woman determined to get a 20% discount, despite all the valid arguments and store policies standing against her? When the police arrived, the store's atmosphere instantly turned tense and bizarre. Shoppers around didn't know what to do but stared in disbelief, as though they were unintentionally participating in an unexpected play. The officers, while trying to remain calm, were not there to stop any criminal activity, but were trying to gently and patiently explain that discounts were not an inherent right for every citizen. They stood there like psychologists, trying to convey the message that no matter how persistent she was, discounts were not something that could be demanded at will. Meanwhile, the Queen of Discounts still wouldn't back down. She looked at the police as if they were trying to prevent a revolution, and no one could understand the hardship she was facing. Just 20%. This scene, both hilarious and bizarre, made everyone present wonder if she was truly standing on the verge of a life-or-death battle, or if she was simply unable to let go of her hope for a lower price. The police could only look at each other, helpless before the indescribable determination of a woman fighting not for justice, but for a discounted shirt. And so, the dramatic story began, not between criminals and law enforcement, but in an endless confrontation between the power of consumer will and the supreme authority of the law. Would store policy triumph over the sentence of a determined shopper, or would the law prevail with a verdict on her actions? Surely, this would be an uneven battle, but a gripping one. "Ma'am, please leave the store now, or we will have to arrest you for trespassing." The police officer's voice rang out, stern but not lacking patience, as if they were performing their job in a long-running crime drama. But in response to all the warnings, the woman stood unshaken, even seeming to relish the fact that this was the climax of the shopping battle. She was neither flustered nor panicked, but rather had the determined face of a hero in an action film, ready to take on all challenges from the villains. And then, instead of stepping back like any ordinary person, she presented a reason no one could refuse. "My boyfriend works here, and I deserve a discount." A reason so creative. She had gone big by connecting her romantic relationship with the store's policy. This was clearly an advanced tactic, like bringing your whole family in to demand a discount. "He works here." As if with this single sentence, all rules should be waived. The police may have learned a valuable lesson on how to handle this ultra-dramatic situation, but clearly, the woman had no intention of stopping. With a perfect and irrefutable reason, she was preparing to continue her battle, not with the police or store policies, but with the very logic of shopping life. It turns out, in her unimaginable logic, the presence of her boyfriend, whom she claimed worked at the store, must be the key to unlocking the 20% discount paradise. She had no hesitation in stating that her boyfriend worked there, and therefore she was absolutely entitled to the discount, an argument that left anyone who heard it in awe. It seemed she thought everything in this store could be adjusted based on who you knew, especially your partner. The police, with no words left to describe how strange and bizarre the story was, gently but firmly told her to leave the store or face consequences. This situation ended with the woman being escorted out, but not without a triumphant smile on her face. After all, to her, the battle had been won. And the moral of this story? Always remember, if you want a discount, a boyfriend might just be the ticket. With a spirit as resilient as that of a revolutionary fighter, the woman seemed completely unafraid of the power of the law. She stood firm like a mountain, without the slightest wavering, as though leading a great movement demanding discounts for everyone. Not because she needed to buy anything, but because she had the right to a discount, and nothing could stop that legitimate right. In the tense and exhausting atmosphere, she kept emphasizing her demand. If you don't give me a discount, at least keep these clothes for me until my boyfriend arrives. Her voice wasn't pleading, but commanding, as if these clothes were precious family heirlooms, and if they weren't protected immediately, the whole world would collapse. She looked at the store staff and police with fiery eyes, as if she were engaged in a life-and-death battle over a few pieces of clothing, making everyone around her stop and seriously reconsider the right to a discount. The police, who were tired of every excuse and reasoning, seemed to begin feeling as though they were participating in a comedy show, where they were merely unwilling supporting actors. But for her, nothing mattered more than those clothes, and now she was not just fighting for a discount, but for a noble ideal: maximum protection for the clothes she believed deserved to be honored. Unfortunately, life is not always like a romantic film with sweet endings, where the police are not only law enforcers but also matchmakers or even keepers of items for customers demanding discounts. In reality, this situation resembled an endless drama, where the woman was not the beloved heroine, but the central figure in a persistent argument about discount rights. With a somewhat tired but resolute look, the police officer, who was used to more complex situations than convincing customers in a store, spoke up. "Do you understand this is the store's right? If they ask you to leave, you must leave, or you'll be arrested for trespassing." His voice wasn't a suggestion for negotiation, but a clear statement about the legal limits. Perhaps in her dream world, the police were the ones who would hold on to items for her, but in the real world, they had one job: to enforce the law, and no, they were not responsible for holding items for anyone because their boyfriend works here. The store, like any other, was not a place to haggle with emotions or the reasoning of, because my boyfriend works here. This was not a discount fair, but a commercial venue where policies, regulations, and the law were paramount, not unreasonable demands based on, because I want to. However, in that moment, the woman persisted as if all reasonable arguments were meaningless compared to her right to hold items until my boyfriend comes. The police, though exhausted, continued explaining that the law had no provisions to protect this odd demand. But for her, this seemed to be an inviolable principle, a right that could not be denied. The drama reached new heights as she, instead of accepting reality, seemed ready to turn this into a fight for discount rights, as if she were the leader of a movement against market price injustices. Her eyes burned brightly, her hands clutching the clothes as though protecting treasure, and she kept insisting on a discount, as if it were a great battle being watched by all of humanity. It felt like, for a moment, this store was no longer a place to buy things, but a battleground for the discount rights of consumers. Sadly, if this were a battle, she had chosen the wrong battlefield. A store was not the place to fight for discount rights or challenge the law with emotional reasoning. While she stood firm, the police, with undeniable patience, continued giving persuasive warnings, but sadly, she seemed to hear nothing except the echo of her own voice. She stood there like an unyielding warrior, still clutching the clothes, her eyes fixed forward as if challenging the world. The entire store seemed to hold its breath, no one daring to breathe too deeply, knowing this bizarre scene wasn't over. All eyes were on her, wondering whether this was an endless performance or just part of a script she had written herself. Each passing minute felt like a century, as both staff and customers waited to see if she would retreat or continue battling with the authorities for a discount. Tension escalated like a top-tier action movie, as the police patiently repeated each word, as if trying to convince a villain in a classic story. You have to leave if you don't want to be arrested. However, for the woman, the warnings seemed only echoes in the air. She stood there, her eyes blazing as if she had just discovered the greatest secret of the universe. Discount or hold my items, that's all I want, she yelled, her voice echoing as if she were fighting not for a discounted item but for her own noble cause. Everyone around, from store employees to innocent customers, seemed to be watching an unrelenting battle between willpower and authority. But unfortunately, no matter how loud she shouted, the gift she desired was something that could not be bought with tears or determination. The police looked at her, wondering if they could start a course on rights and obligations for those who wanted to control every situation, even without holding the power cards. The police's warnings, though serious and clear, were like wind passing through her ears, having no impact. The police asked for her identification to proceed with the situation, but she firmly responded with a no, as if questioning why she should comply. "Why should I show ID? Why should I?" she asked, surprised as if this request was an unforgivable insult. Her words were like an anthem, as if she were defending her sacred rights, not just a discount card, but her survival in the consumer world. The police, instead of a frustrated shake of the head, tried to stay calm, but were left with no choice but to explain again that providing identification was the minimum when dealing with her trespassing behavior. But clearly, for this woman, showing identification was no different than giving up the power of being the girlfriend of a store employee, a power she believed was enough to change all the rules. In the atmosphere filled with confusion and misunderstanding, things reached a peak without any sign of retreat. The woman, still holding her ground like a tireless warrior, stood firm in a battle that had no stop order from her. The police, meanwhile, seemed exhausted, unsure what to do other than continue reminding her of the consequences of her actions. Both sides seemed to be in an unending dance, where the more the police tried to pull her out of this quagmire, the more she wanted to stay, determined to wait for a discount miracle. While everyone around was filled with confusion, as if witnessing a dramatic performance, the woman stood confidently as if standing at the finish line of a grueling shopping contest. Truly, there's nothing like the power of unwavering resolve, in this case, the determination to demand a discount. If there were a director scripting this scene, they would surely need to add a few grand shots, like the woman standing tall, hands raised in a victorious discount signal, no matter how hard the police tried. The police, though not wanting to do this, surely couldn't let this performance continue forever. Everything had gone beyond simple shopping negotiations and turned into an unexpected legal battle. The tension continued to rise, and now no one knew what the outcome would be. The police, exhausted from the endless reasoning, finally made their final warning, but not in silence. Instead, they chose to explain in detail the legal consequences, with a serious and firm tone, as if explaining a subject everyone should memorize. If you don't leave, you will be arrested for trespassing and might have to pay bail to be released. This warning, though dry and cold, felt to the woman like a sad song echoing in her mind, only confusing her and making her more alive in her battle for discounts. It seemed as though she was trapped in a play where no amount of legal language could stop her determination. She might even imagine herself stepping onto the stage, holding a microphone, shouting discount rights for all. In her eyes, the police were not law protectors, but villains hindering her righteous struggle. And then, as if everything hadn't been dramatic enough, the woman stubbornly refused to leave. "I don't have money. I just want to keep my things until my boyfriend comes," she snapped, completely oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. Her words rang out as if they were a sincere plea from the heart, but they lacked any awareness of the warnings that had been given. It was as though she were playing a game of entertainment, and asking for a discount was an undeniable right. As the tension rose, the woman kept holding on to her power, as if she were participating in a discount contest, and keeping her items waiting for her boyfriend was a critical situation that couldn't be argued with. There was no room for reason or argument, only unconditional resistance to the system and rules. Each of her words was like an attack on every principle of rights and obligations. Because not having money was the perfect trump card in this situation, a card she seemed to believe could overturn the store's entire rules and regulations. The police, with weary faces as if they had been through a long battle, stood frozen before her guarantee of waiting for her boyfriend. Perhaps, in her mind, the whole world was simply a giant discount store, and all rules could be bent if the reason was convincing enough. In the tense space, where every warning from the police seemed like punches to the fragile reasoning of the woman, she stood firm like an unyielding warrior, completely unshaken. It seemed as if she didn't realize that waiting for my boyfriend was not a valid reason to derail the law, or at least not convincing enough for an officer to change their stance on trespassing. The rules were set, the boundaries drawn, and this store, like any other, had its own regulations, regardless of the personal wishes of the customer. And so, the scene continued, uncertain, as if waiting for the next act of this saga of discounts, rebellion, and absurdity. Meanwhile, the woman, as if participating in a resilience in paradox contest, refused to give up her last chance, a discount. Not only did she persist in her failed arguments, but she also decided to resist by any means necessary, not just verbally but physically. Every step the police took closer, she used all her strength to resist, making the situation increasingly tense, as though she were performing a never-ending play. Her determination forced the officers to intervene more forcefully, and now this situation resembled a struggle, where each side tried to protect what they believed to be their inviolable rights. Every plea from the woman forced the police to hold back more, as if they were in a competition to see who could remain calm longer in an unequal battle. They tried to maintain their stance, not allowing her to distract them, but truly, this situation felt like a dramatic comedy, where everything could turn into an unnecessary yet fascinating performance. The police appeared as characters trying to maintain seriousness in a situation no one could have anticipated, for the woman was not only fighting against them but also against an entire legal process, all because of one reason: discount. The image of the woman stubbornly resisting arrest became an unbelievable event in the eyes of the witnesses. It seemed that all rules, all principles, could not compare to the discount rights she imagined. She was not only fighting with the officers but also facing reality, where discount is not something that can be requested without consequence. But for her, it was all a game, where the legal process was just a small obstacle on the path to conquering that bargain. The tension reached its peak when the woman began persuading the police in a way only a comedy film could depict. "I just want to keep my things for my boyfriend. I don't have money," she screamed, as if this was a valid reason to turn the store into a battlefield and the police into roadblocks to her discount dream. These pleas not only increased the tension but also left all the witnesses speechless, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. In such a clear situation, no one could help her. A discount is not a right that can be easily demanded, especially when doing so means infringing on the store's rights. The police had to be firm, as though they were the main characters in a high-stakes play, where their role was not only to maintain order but also to bring the woman into the harsh reality of life. Discounts cannot be demanded with just a word. This scene made one thing clear, an undeniable fact. No matter how much she resisted or begged, the discounted dress was still out of reach, and the price she had to pay was arrest, an outcome no one hoped for, but a fair price for her actions. After the intense drama stretched on, the woman was finally put into the police car. But like in all great dramas, when everything seemed to be over, she could not give up her star role. The police, with tired but patient faces, put her into the car. However, instead of quietly accepting her fate, she continued to speak as if participating in a "I am the most wronged person" contest. "I don't deserve to be treated like this. I just want to keep my things for my boyfriend," she screamed, as if she were standing on a grand stage declaring victory in a great struggle. The police, perhaps not knowing what more to do, sighed and looked at her with a mixture of surprise and helplessness. At this point, her resilience was not a sign of strength, but of an unshakable stubbornness. She didn't realize that all this drama had reached its conclusion, and now her role was no longer that of the victor, but that of the arrested. Yet, no, she kept on speaking as if this was her last chance to gain recognition from the world, that she, despite being arrested, was still a victim of a discount conspiracy. This scene was truly unbelievable, as the woman had become the protagonist in a comedy, where the goal was not to uncover the truth, but to prove that discounts were the supreme right, while all legal arguments were mere details unworthy of consideration. "Give me back my phone. This is mine. Why are you taking my stuff?" she complained in an unconvincing tone, as if playing the role of a wronged victim in a soap opera. Even though the situation was as clear as day, she still stubbornly insisted she was the victim in this long discount struggle. Her eyes sparkled as though she was fighting for a noble cause, while in reality she didn't even understand the real reason for her arrest. She didn't realize that the phone she was calling with was hers, but her refusal to leave and insistence on keeping her things were the real causes of her troubles. The police, clearly accustomed to such situations, remained calm, but perhaps in their hearts a big question was echoing. "Don't you really understand?" She kept shouting as though she were in a discount victim contest, and the more she shouted, the more dramatic it became, making the atmosphere around her more tense and uncomfortable. At this point, the police could do nothing but endure and respond with the utmost patience. "You'll get your personal belongings back when you arrive at the station." But the woman, as if her life were being terribly violated, continued shouting in a tragic tone, "I just wanted a discount. Why are you treating me like this?" Her question, filled with drama and seeming to suffer a great injustice, had something about it that made people unable to hold back their laughter. Because she was standing before officers, facing a serious legal situation, but all she cared about was a discount, as if discounts were the existential issue of humanity. The police looked at her, perhaps not for the first time dealing with someone who treated discounts as a national issue, but they certainly could not have imagined that a battle over discounts could create such a dramatic wave. While the woman continued to lament her injustice, what was happening around her had no tragic atmosphere at all, but instead a comical absurdity. The image of the woman continuing to whine about her belongings while being taken into the police car really made one think, if discounts were the price to pay for these kinds of dramas, surely everyone would choose to get their personal belongings back instead of enduring this absurdity. However, in such a situation, all her arguments, all her pleas, were useless. She didn't realize she was fighting for an item, while more important matters were unfolding around her. Instead of viewing the situation rationally, she continued to wallow in her own world of discounts, where every action could be justified by stubbornness. But, like all comedies, no matter how much she begged, the police car still drove off. She was caught in a journey not because of discounts, but because of her own unreasonable stubbornness, which seemed to be the gift she received from this confrontation. The price she paid was not a discount, but a valuable lesson about how sometimes, in life, what we pursue can lead us into unexpected situations. In the end, no matter how much the woman resisted, she still faced the inevitable outcome. This story was not just a comedy about paradoxical situations in life, but also a lesson that sometimes resilience is not always a good trait, but can instead be unreasonable stubbornness. Her insistence on demanding a discount and rejecting all logic had made her lose the opportunity to resolve the situation wisely. The lesson from this story is, in life, determination doesn't always bring good results. Sometimes, listening, understanding the situation, and accepting the truth will help us avoid awkward situations. Don't let stubbornness lead you into a dead end, because sometimes true value lies not in what we demand, but in how we face and resolve the situation.